Thanks for checking out this movie review video. So this is for the 2021 film The Night House. And yes, every now and then I like to review newer films. So for that reason, this is a no spoiler review, although I will be revealing a little bit of kind of the thematic stuff and a little bit of subtext while I'm not speaking specifically about the events of the film. It's just more subtext, thematic stuff. So if you don't want to know that at all, you might want to not watch this review and then come back after you've watched the film, because I do recommend it. I think it's a good film. I have one big issue with it, which I'll reveal later on, but there's a lot of good stuff here, and overall I did enjoy the film. Directed by David Bruckner. Some people may know of him. He did The Signal, which I actually own back there in my DVDs. Very good film, underrated, and I should rewatch and review that. Did a segment for VHS. The first one did a segment for Southbound. Did a segment for Creepshow on Shudder. Also did The Ritual, and is going to be doing the new Hellraiser series, which, is it coming to HBO Max? I don't remember. I don't remember where the home is for the new Hellraiser series, but I don't want to say high hopes. I have medium hopes. Because it's not, it's never going to be like the originals, but I think David Bruckner does a nice job. I trust in his abilities, so I think we could get something decent. This film's written by Ben Collins and Luke Piotrowski, who wrote scripts for Siren, Super Dark Times, Stephanie, and the upcoming Hellraiser series. So working with Bruckner once again, that's cool. This film actually premiered at the 2020 Sundance Festival, but it ended up being held an extra year for release because of COVID. A lot of films were held because of COVID because people were kind of like, we'd really like to put these in theaters and have people there paying to see them. So obviously COVID really disrupted a lot of that, and that's why these films were held. So I say it's a 2021 film because that's when it was released, even though it was finished and ready to go in 2020. So quick synopsis without giving too much away, because I don't really want to give much away, because like I said, I would recommend people watching it. It's about a woman who just recently lost her husband, and she's living in this house that he built, and while she's there living by herself, she's, obviously dealing with grieving, dealing with the loss, and there's a lot in this film having to do with that. But some weird things start to happen, and it becomes this kind of mystery of her trying to solve the situation and find out, was there something she didn't really know about going on prior to her husband passing away? Or is, she just going through some stuff and it's kind of all in her head? So a little bit of that kind of like potentially unreliable narrative situation going on here. And there are multiple meanings. It's kind of like a dual meaning film, like what's actually going on versus what the actual, subtext and entire metaphor for the film really is. The music is immediately great. Really love the musical choices in this film and the incorporation into it. There aren't too many times where it feels like the music's getting a little overbearing. From time to time, it's a little bit overbearing, but nothing terrible. For the most part, it's pretty restrained, and the music just sounds great. It matches the mood really well. It matches the scenes really well. So really enjoy how they incorporated the music. It starts with a very sad kind of air to the whole film, which obviously, if you've watched enough horror, is very fertile ground for horror stories. And to be honest, it kind of maintains a sadness throughout the entire film, which makes sense because of the actual subject matter within the film. It literally focuses on this woman as she's kind of just trying to deal. And if you can just put yourself in that mindset, it makes sense, So this film really creates a sad atmosphere, a melancholy atmosphere, and it's maintained pretty much throughout. Obviously, since it's horror, there are some tense moments that pop up. There's some kind of scary stuff that happens. There are a few jump scares. One of them got me, which was like the first jump scare. I like it when, in order to get people on a jump scare, a film will go a decent amount of time with having no jump scares whatsoever, and then all of a sudden there's a jump scare, because at that point, you're not expecting it. If they're very sparse, they can have a lot more impact. It's the films that are trying to just throw like jump scare, jump scare, jump scare, that you start rolling your eyes, like maybe the first one gets you, but after that, you just start being like, you're expecting it, So it's smart filmmaking to keep it very minimal with the jump scares, because then you're really going to capitalize on them. They just mean so much more. It's like a lot of things in life. Less is more, and it means more when it shows up. There isn't much dialogue in the very beginning of the film, and they don't try to put too much dialogue into the film. Like, the dialogue that takes place is purposeful. So I think from a dialogue perspective, they did a really, really good job at making sure that when characters are talking, there's a reason. Like, they're moving stuff forward, whether it's the actual story of the film or if it's the character relationships, or just to kind of like build a scene that feels realistic. So all the dialogue seems to have purpose, and that's not super common in my opinion. So it really does point to some nice writing in my opinion. Sorry for the dog again. I really can't control these things. Hopefully it calms down. I'm just gonna soldier through. There's a moment about 15 minutes in that makes a great point about how people interact with each other and how you kind of never know what people really are going through. So you should really be more gracious when you interact with people. You should be more forgiving with a person's situation because, well, even if you don't know their situation, approach everyone just kind of thinking, I may be trying to talk to this person for a certain purpose, but I need to also be open-minded and realize that, maybe they're having a bad day. Maybe they're dealing with something very heavy. Maybe they're sad, maybe, whatever. So just like be more forgiving. Don't make assumptions when you're going in. And there's a really good scene in this, like I said, about 15 minutes in, that really kind of capitalizes on that situation. So I really enjoyed that. About 20 minutes in, something very intriguing ends up getting introduced in the film, and that's kind of really starts the mystery aspect of it. There is a mystery to be solved in this film, and you're kind of going along with the main character to try and solve this mystery. I really fully did not know where it was going to go, and that's great. Like, they give you enough to keep you interested, to keep it feeling very mysterious, but it's not something that you would necessarily see coming. I mean, I'm sure maybe someone did, but I think the payoff is pretty good, in my opinion. Like I said before, the dialogue is well written, but to kind of say something a little bit further about the dialogue it feels super, super realistic. It's really, really well written, not just from the standpoint of what I was saying before, of it being just well done to the point where it's purposeful each time someone's talking, but it's also, it feels real. Like, people are talking in a very real manner, and when people are interacting with each other, they feel like genuine, real human interactions, especially for whatever the situation is. There's a pretty effective jump scare. I already talked about that. About an hour into the film, there's a really cool visual trick that is a really nice use of CGI. Now, they do it a few more times, and I really like it. And it has more meaning to it than just like being something cool looking visually. I'm sorry again. I really can't control this with the dog. Hopefully you're not hearing it though. My microphone's good enough for that. But anyway, yeah, you see the CGI thing again, and it's very, very good. It's very purposeful. It has deeper meaning to the film, and I really do like their incorporation of it. And it's also done like kind of in a darker lighting, and that's usually when it's best to use CGI, in my opinion, personally. There's a solid mystery aspect to the film as well, like I already talked about. The mystery is good, and like I said, you're solving it along with the main character. There is good use of stints of silence that's kind of used at certain times to increase tension, but in other times it's actually used to kind of make you as an audience member deal with a tough emotional moment, and that's usually having to do with the main character feeling emotion and emoting to the camera, and it's meant to make you feel. It's meant to make you feel a little bit awkward and uncomfortable at times, and I think that's purposefully done, and it's well executed, in my opinion, and the silence aspect of those moments really does help. The film does need to be cut down, though. This is my big issue with the film. I think with credits, it's an hour and 47 minutes long. That is definitely too long for what the story is. The pacing is bad. Not very good pacing, but if you stick with it, the story is definitely worth it, in my opinion. And like I've already laid out, there are a lot of very positive things with this film. So watch it. This deals heavily with loss and how hard it can be for people to figure out how they can best deal with it which can lead to a sort of grieving purgatory in a sense. Not everyone knows immediately how to deal with loss, how to grieve necessarily. So if something sudden happens, you lose someone in your life, people may have this period of really just trying to figure out how they're going to deal with this. And that may feel weird to other people who are interacting with them, but just, those people need to know that it's very weird for the person trying to deal with it. Like, they're trying to figure out which way to go. How are they going to choose to cope? So I think that's well shown within this film. There's also a little bit of a mental health aspect that's thrown into this film as well, and is definitely like a subtextual thing, which I think is done pretty well. A solid portion of this film actually feels a bit like a retread of Leigh Whannell's Invisible Man film, by the way it's executed, specifically. A little bit thematically, well, somewhat thematically, but also in the way that it's executed. So some of it may not feel that fresh to people. If they've seen The Invisible Man, you may literally make that comparison at certain points during the film, like I was, where I was just like, this is very much like The Invisible Man, and I would be shocked if it was not inspired, at least a little bit, the portions that look like it's from that movie, that they weren't inspired by that film. And the last thing I wanted to say is the potential duplicitous nature of some people is at play within this film, and I think they do a good job of that, not just within the context of the story and the characters, but also from a visual filmmaking standpoint. There are certain things placed within the film to show duplicity, and I like that. I like those kind of visual artistic cues. So overall, I did enjoy this film. Out of 5 stars with half stars in play, I'm going a very solid 3.5-star rating for it. Had the pacing been a lot better, it definitely would have been a 4, but the pacing is not great, unfortunately. This is a problem that we have with film right now. People just trying to make the films longer for some reason when they really aren't needed, and it seems to dilute the film to a degree that it takes the impact down. At least for me it does. And that's not everyone. This is my personal opinion on it. But would love to hear your opinions on this film. Go ahead and put them in the comments, and go ahead, we can talk spoilers in the comments, so go ahead, let's go ahead and talk. Do me a quick favor though, before you quit watching this video, hit subscribe if you haven't already. That's your best way to repay me if you like this video or any video I have ever done. It is quick, it is painless, it costs you no money, and legitimately, I'm thankful for it, and it keeps me motivated, so that would be great. Also, hit the notification bell button. Then you'll know when I'm putting up new videos, which I'm doing for a week at this point, which I think is a good amount. But regardless, I really do thank you for taking your time to watch this particular video. Until next time, keep it brutal.